president talks all the time about bringing back manufacturing.
Yeah.
And some of his critics say, well, you can't bring it back. That's old, we don't want to be making old-fashioned stuff anymore. Those aren't good jobs, whatever.
The future of manufacturing in America is advanced manufacturing.
Right.
And I do think there's a disconnect between how people think about manufacturing and the factories of today. Look around us.
Yeah.
They're clean, they're high tech. They are very much the industries of the future. So we see this time and time again. So I do think there's a misperception about what it means to be in manufacturing today, and we're trying to dispel that and debunk that, and it's working. Here in Alabama alone, wages are up, hours are up, manufacturing employment is way up, poverty is down. We hit an unemployment rate, much like the rest of the country here in Alabama, that is the lowest it's ever been at 3.3%. So great jobs are being created. And you mentioned manufacturing. Today there are 500,000 vacant manufacturing jobs. 500,000 good paying vacant jobs.
And the thing that you've got going on here, which is so connected to the broader conversation about the economy. People are saying, well, it's slowing down a bit. Are we going to get a recession? It's not slowing down in terms of businesses wanting to expand. They've got the job vacancies there. You've got 500,000 in manufacturing, as you say. You've got over 1 million, I think, in the open positions in the broader economy. Unfilled, sitting there. No one's with them. And so
the economy is incredibly strong.
And therefore, getting people the skills to take those jobs. This is what frustrates me so often. I know it does you too, about this conversation about skills and training. It's often seen as a bit boring. It's not as sexy as some of the other political issues that everyone talks about, like immigration or whatever. But it's really at the heart of the economic story, because if you can get those jobs filled by people with the skills, then you've got room for the economy to grow even faster.
Steve, to me, this is the thing I'm most passionate about working on, because everyone talks about this idea of inclusive growth and what does that mean? But this economy, because of the policy and because of the environment that's been created through tax reform and deregulation that has unleashed business and unleashed investment in this country, but combined with what we're doing with our Pledge to America's Workers, where we've had over 300 private sector companies commit to skilling, upskilling, training 13 million Americans in just a little over a year. This is creating the type of inclusive growth. So let me just give you one of my favorite stats that's not often talked about. But in the second quarter of this past year, and this is pretty much true every month, same with this last month in August, 73% of all new jobs created were secured by those on the sidelines of the economy.
Wow.
Those not on unemployment, those completely outside of the labor force. So the workforce participation rate is rising because wages are going up. Every demographic you can imagine.
And by the way, on that, I think I'm right in saying that a big proportion of that is women entering the workforce.
Proportion
so
of
you're
that
getting
is women.
That gender equality. All these things.
Women, millennial women are seeing record opportunities. African American women are driving. Just this past month in August, unemployment for African American women, adult women, reached 4.4%, which is a historic low.
Yeah.
So every demographic, but then
and there's still room to grow because the vacancies are there, as we were saying.
The vacancies are there.
But the skills aren't there, and that's why you've got this initiative.
So our mission and the president's mission is to turn around to the private sector and say, we're going to do this together. The government-run programs tend not to yield the desired result. You need a scalpel, not a hammer. You need to know the skills that are required. Of the employer, because they're the ones creating the jobs. They're the ones also disrupting the jobs. So I have employers say to me all the time, well, we need more workers, we need more workers. And I say, well, there's still 6.5 million unemployed Americans and tons more that for decades have been outside of the labor force. Let's start there. And it's happening. Employers are now getting creative about their hiring. They're offering second chances to those who have been incarcerated and who have enormous barriers to securing employment, and we know that if somebody is given that second chance, they're much less likely to commit a new crime and wind up back in the system. So now they're expanding to populations that had previously been marginalized, whether it's the formerly incarcerated, whether it's disabled Americans. So under this president's watch and due to this president's economic agenda, unemployment for disabled Americans is as lowest it's ever been in history. And part of that is what we were talking about, advanced manufacturing.
This connects to the broader conversation about the economy, but it also connects to the conversation about what's going on in our society. Because if you've got someone who, after decades of not working, they have a job, a steady, regular, well-paying job, that starts to mend our social fabric that's been broken, family strength. All these issues around housing and communities and families that people are rightly concerned about. A job is at the heart of that.
And we want to support that transition. So to me, there's nothing that illustrates the success of the economic agenda than what we're seeing in terms of workforce participation rates increasing and people coming off the sidelines and working with the private sector to secure the skills they need. I mean, I have traveled across this country and I've heard from people who have been laid off at good paying jobs, and it took them years. And the cycle and the pain of that experience for themselves on a personal level, for their families. And then I met a man in eastern Kentucky. He loved Kentucky. He didn't want to leave Kentucky, but he wanted to learn the skills that would enable him to secure a new job. Right. And through one of these programs where you have the opportunity to learn and earn simultaneously, and the latter is key. A lot of people, most people cannot afford to go through a program where they aren't earning a family-sustaining wage simultaneously. So if they can learn while they earn and they get placed into a great job. So he learned computer science and coding, and now he is exporting code from eastern Kentucky just like he used to export coal. Now, coal happens to be coming back as well, but it is an amazing thing. And this is a man who said that he went from store to store and could not get a job, bagging groceries, doing anything. And now he's secured this consistent, well-paying job, and his skills are in high demand.
Again, two really important points you just made there about the changes in our economy, in our society in this century. First of all, he didn't want to leave his home. He didn't want to leave where he grew up. You hear that the whole time over this is one of the things I think that's driven this populist revolution is the condescending way for many years now. You've had, to use a sort of simplistic phrase, the coastal elites and the knowledge economy saying, well, move to where the jobs are. If you've got to move, that's the way the economy's going. Suck it up. You've got to move to Silicon Valley, whatever it is. People don't want to do that. It's patronizing. So if you can bring the opportunities to where they are, that's transformational. And then secondly, they're earning when they're learning. It's just not so easy for people to say, oh, I'll learn a new skill, drop everything if you've got family responsibilities or whatever. And so this approach
a couple of things to that point. So mobility is down dramatically from the 1980s. Mobility in America has been reduced by 50%. So a lot of people don't want to leave. They love their homes. They love. He would like to live nowhere else other than Eastern Kentucky. He loves Eastern Kentucky, and that's amazing. A lot of people feel that way. And then other people can't leave. They need the support system of their families to offset the cost of childcare. Their wealth is locked up in their home, which is not liquid. They'll lose their benefits if they leave. Occupational licensure, which is an enormous problem in this country and disproportionately affects those who can least afford it.
By
they
the
can't
way,
afford
just
to move.
Why that's so important. That's people who want to, maybe start a small business doing a particular service, and they can't because the regulations say you've got to have all this kind of licensing to get going.
The president has worked in, just to give you an example of individuals very affected by it, military spouses. So they move very consistently every 2 to 3 years. Oftentimes they work, and a high percentage of them work in heavily licensed and regulated fields. By the time they move,
what's an example of that? Just so
teaching, the healthcare space, but any industry. Now, obviously, we should have licensing for those industries. But we have to think about military spouses with the frequency in which they move. Oftentimes they can't afford to secure a new license. Oftentimes it takes around a year of bureaucracy. By the time they get the new license, assuming they can afford it, they have to move again. So we're
really
thinking about compacts where states say, well, we're going to recognize the licensure that exists. Now, this has to be done on a state and local level, and there's been some great leadership on this. So Governor Ducey in Arizona has been leading by saying Arizona will recognize any license that's brought to us by a credible source, because we want people to come to Arizona to work. But too infrequently that happens. So of course an electrician needs a license. But does somebody who's braiding hair need a license?
Yes.
So a lot of different state and local governments have made just a fortune by creating this really oppressive licensure regime that's holding down people who want to secure job opportunities in those industries. You have to be a licensed dog walker in a lot of states in this country. So it's just a fee stream for governments that really holds people back. But going back to the earlier point, so maybe there are barriers that prevent you from being able to move that are structural. Maybe you want to stay in the community in which you're living. We are trying to get investment to come into those communities so no one's left behind and no communities are left behind. So one of the critical components of tax reform is the creation of opportunity zones. So governors determine the zip codes that are most in need of investment, whether they be urban or rural. 8,300 have been identified across this country, 8,300 zip codes that were previously unable to attract the same type of capital investments as neighboring areas. And governors determine that, and then the private sector is incentivized to bring their capital, and it's working. Capital from the private sector is flooding into communities that had been overlooked. So jobs are being created in proximity to where people live, and not just in the coastal areas of this country.
Is just so vital.
And one other element, just to add to that, but so if we're trying to create job opportunities, if we're trying to increase the workforce participation rate in this country, we need to create policy that recognizes the modern composition of the American workforce and the American working family, which now the Republican Party is leading on issues like paid family leave. Senator Cassidy and Senator Sinema came together and put forth the first bipartisan ever legislation on paid family leave. So arguably, we've advanced this dialogue from a policy perspective more in the past 2 years than the 25 years prior since the passing of FMLA. So thinking about, of course, we want to encourage connectivity for somebody to their job when they have a life-altering event like a child. Republicans are the party of work and the party of family, so we need to support both. Now, 47% of the workforce is female. The vast majority of homes, both parents work or all parents work, including homes with young children. So how can we ensure that all Americans have access to safe, affordable, high-quality childcare? This administration has expanded the child care block grants to the states to offset the cost of child care, affordable, high-quality child care for those who are working and can't afford it, more than any other administration, the largest expansion in the program's history, because that supports family and it supports work.